500 years ago, a disgraced diplomat sat by candlelight in a rural Italian farmhouse and wrote a book that would become the most dangerous manuscript in human history. It was banned by the Pope. It was hidden by kings. It was read in secret by every major conqueror, dictator and CEO of the modern era. You have likely heard his name whispered as an insult. Society tells you that being Machiavellian means being evil, psychotic, and entirely without morals. Society has lied to you. Niccolò Machiavelli did not invent human cruelty. He simply removed the mask. He looked at the brutal, unforgiving reality of how humans actually behave, not how we wish they behaved, and he wrote the ultimate blueprint for survival. If you feel like you are constantly being used, manipulated, and stepped on by people who care less than you do, it is because you are playing by a set of rules that your enemies abandoned a long time ago. By the end of this video, you will unlearn the toxic programming that makes you a target. You will understand a terrifying psychological concept called the virtue trap. You will learn the exact reason why modern manipulators weaponize your desire to be loved. Most importantly, I will reveal Machiavelli's ultimate masterstroke for surviving a predatory world, a behavioral framework I call the Fox and the Lion Protocol. Once you learn this, no one will ever be able to back you into a corner again. Think about the central philosophy you have been taught since you were a child. Be kind. Always tell the truth. Put others before yourself. If you do good things will happen to you. Machiavelli looked at this philosophy and saw a suicide pact. He wrote one of the most chillingly accurate sentences in the history of psychology. A man who wishes to make a profession of goodness in everything must necessarily come to ruin among so many who are not good. This is the virtue trap. When you enter a negotiation, a workplace environment, or a romantic relationship with a commitment to pure, unconditional goodness, you are walking onto a battlefield with your hands tied behind your back. You assume the other person is operating with the same moral compass. They are not. A covert narcissist, a corporate shark, or a toxic friend sees your goodness not as a virtue to be respected, but as a lever to be pulled. They realize that because you are bound by the rules of fairness, honesty, and empathy, your behavior is entirely predictable. And in power dynamics, predictability is a fatal weakness. If a toxic co-worker knows you will always take the high road, they will intentionally drag you into the mud, knowing you won't fight back. If a manipulative partner knows you will always forgive them because you believe in second chances, they will continuously abuse you, knowing there are zero consequences. Your goodness is financing their disrespect. To survive, Machiavelli argues that you must cultivate strategic adaptability. You must have the capacity to be good, but you must absolutely possess the willingness to be ruthless when the environment demands it. You cannot bring a shield to a negotiation if the other person has already drawn a sword. This brings us to his most famous and most misunderstood psychological question. Is it better to be loved or feared? In a perfect world, Machiavelli notes, you would want to be both. But because humans are inherently fickle, selfish, and easily swayed by their own desires, it is almost impossible to maintain both at the same time. If you must choose, he states clearly, it is much safer to be feared than to be loved. Do not misunderstand the word fear. In the modern context, in your office, in your friend group, in your relationships, fear does not mean holding a weapon or screaming in someone's face. True power is much quieter than that. Modern fear is the fear of consequence. It is the fear of losing access to you. Machiavelli explains the biology behind this perfectly. Love is held by a bond of obligation, which, because men are wicked, is broken whenever their own interests are at stake. But fear is held by a dread of punishment which never leaves you. Let's translate this into modern human behavior. Think of the nice guy boss. He wants everyone to love him. He He lets deadlines slide. He doesn't punish incompetence. He treats his employees like family. What happens? The employees stop respecting him. They arrive late. They do the bare minimum, because the bond of love is entirely voluntary. The moment the employee's self-interest, wanting to sleep in, wanting to do less work, conflicts with their love for the boss, they will choose themselves. The boss is eventually fired because his department is a chaotic failure. Now look at a highly respected Machiavellian leader. They are polite, professional, and composed. But there is a silent, undeniable boundary. Every single person in the room knows that if they cross a line, there will be immediate clinical consequences. The employees do not love this boss, but they perform flawlessly. Why? Because love depends on the emotions of the other person. You cannot control whether someone loves you today or tomorrow. But fear, the dread of losing a job, the dread of losing a high-value partner, the dread of your absolute silence, is a psychological state that you control. When you base your boundaries on the hope that people will love you enough to respect you, you give them all the power. When you base your boundaries on the absolute certainty of consequences, you become untouchable. This leads directly into the next fatal mistake agreeable people make: the trap of transparency. Society demands that you be an open book. You're encouraged to share your feelings, explain your motives, and show everyone exactly who you are. Machiavelli saw transparency as a profound tactical error. He wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." Predators thrive on your emotional transparency. When you tell a toxic person exactly what you are afraid of, exactly what your goals are, and exactly what makes you angry, you are handing them the architectural blueprints to your nervous system. You are telling them exactly where to plant the explosives. You must master the art of the psychological facade. You must learn to conceal your true intentions behind a wall of pleasant, agreeable apathy. Be polite. Be cordial. Be entirely unreadable. Do not tell your co-workers your next career move until the promotion is already signed. Do not tell a manipulative ex-partner how much they hurt you. Give them a blank stare that makes them wonder if you ever cared at all. When you restrict access to your inner mind, manipulators become paralyzed. They cannot manipulate a target they cannot read. But everything we have discussed so far, managing consequences, hiding your intentions, recognizing the virtue trap, are just defensive mechanisms. To truly master your reality, you must know how to strike back. You must know exactly when to shift from defense to offense. This brings us to Machiavelli's ultimate masterclass in behavioral strategy, the exact mechanism you must internalize to defeat the predators in your life. I call it the fox and the lion protocol. Machiavelli observed that there are two types of threats in the world: traps and wolves. He wrote, "A prince must imitate the fox and the lion, for the lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. One must therefore be a fox to recognize traps, and a lion to frighten wolves." Most people are strictly one or the other. People who are only lions use brute force, anger, and direct confrontation for everything. They yell, they demand respect. But because they rely only on aggression, they are incredibly blind. They easily stumble into the subtle traps laid by a covert fox, like a narcissist who quietly records their angry outbursts to play the victim later. The lion is strong, but easily outsmarted. People who are only foxes are clever. They see the traps. They understand psychology. They avoid conflict and try to outmaneuver their enemies. But when a massive, direct threat arrives, when a wolf is standing at their door, screaming in their face, the fox freezes. They have no capacity for pure, overwhelming force. To become the apex predator of your own life, you must fluidly alternate between both. Imagine a toxic co-worker is subtly trying to steal credit for your project in a meeting. If you act like a lion immediately and yell, "You're stealing my work," You look unstable. You fell into their trap. Instead, you use the Fox protocol. You recognize the trap. You stay utterly calm. You let them finish speaking. You wait 3 full seconds in dead silence to draw the room's attention. And then you ask a surgically precise question. That's a fascinating summary of the data I sent you yesterday. Could you elaborate on how you reached that conclusion, considering you didn't have access to the primary source files? The Fox has exposed the trap without raising its voice. The coworker begins to stutter and panic. But what happens when the subtle approach doesn't work? What happens when a manipulator actively crosses a hard boundary, threatens your livelihood, or attempts to completely destroy your reputation? This is when you execute the lion protocol. You drop the facade, you drop the pleasantries, but you do not scream. You look them dead in the eyes. You lower your vocal pitch to a cold, flat monotone, and you deliver a consequence so severe, so absolute, and so unyielding that their nervous system completely reboots. You strip away their access to you. You initiate a legal or professional strike that removes them from the board entirely. You do not negotiate. You remind them that while you are clever enough to see their games, you possess the capacity to destroy them if forced to. You must be a fox to see the knife in their hand. You must be a lion to break their wrist before they can use it. I am not teaching you Machiavellian principles so you can become a tyrant, a liar, or an abuser. I am teaching you this because the world is filled with people who already use these tactics against you every single day. Machiavelli did not write an instruction manual for villains. He wrote a survival guide for the rest of us. Understanding the dark side of human nature is the only way to protect your light. If you refuse to learn how the game is played, you will forever remain a pawn for those who do. Think carefully about the environment you are walking into tomorrow. Who is currently testing your virtue trap? Are you relying too much on being a fox when the situation violently demands a lion? Share your specific survival stories in the comments below, and let us expose these phantom predators together. Subscribe to Niccolò. Join the elite few who see human nature exactly as it is and refuse to be played as pawns. Until next time, guard your intentions relentlessly, remain flawless in your strategy, and always remember, the most dangerous person in the room is the one who understands both the trap and the wolf.